Hello, and welcome back to DBC. Today we're continuing with nonviolent communication by Rosenberg. And today we're just going to talk about Chapter 5, which is taking responsibility for our feelings. Because there's a lot packed in here, so let's get into it. A few really cool reframes coming up today. We want to look at the root of our feelings. Today we talked so much about feelings in the last video, and the idea, a big point right off the bat, is that nonviolent communication heightens our awareness or brings awareness to what others say or do, the actions of others or things going on in the world, can be a stimulus, but never the cause of our feelings. So we can initiate, but it's never fully responsible. Instead, we see that our feelings result from how we choose to receive what others say and do, what comes into us, plus our particular needs and expectations in the moment that it's happening. So stimulus, not a cause. We accept responsibilities for what we do and our own role in generating our feelings. Given that, there are 4 options of ways to respond to a negative verbal or nonverbal message or accusation or any of these things. Step 1 is to blame ourselves. So we take it personally. We hear blame and criticism coming from somebody else. We accept it as true and we blame ourselves. This leads to guilt, shame, depression, negative stuff. Step 2, what we could do is we could blame other person. We could blame the speaker and blame it on them and externalize. And that leads to, instead of guilt, shame, depression, it leads to more of a sense of anger because the other person is doing something wrong. Number 3 is that we can sense our own feelings and needs in the process of what's going on. So for example, if someone says, "You're the most self-centered person I've ever met," we could respond by saying, well, when I hear you say that, "I'm the most self-centered person you've ever met," I feel hurt because I need some recognition of my efforts to be considerate of your preferences. So it's like, oh, okay, you're kind of wrong, but this is what I need, right? Okay, and then step 4 is the highest level according to Rosenberg, and that is to sense the other person's feelings and needs. For example, same thing, "You're the most self-centered person I've ever met in my life." You could say, "Are you feeling hurt because you need consideration for your preferences?" Because if somebody is saying that to you, you've got to think, well, what is going on inside them before they said that? And then the idea here is that the more we can connect our feelings with our own needs, the easier it is for others to respond compassionately. And when we have a feeling, a negative feeling, nonviolent communication asks us, so here's a question to ask. We feel that going on before we yell or blame or do any of those 4 things. What need, desire, expectation, hope, or value has not been fulfilled? Good question. In who is the question? So in myself, which is something good. But as far as generating a response, it's most advantageous to ask in the speaker what's going on inside them. And be careful here of thinking like, oh, I feel X because Y person or X person did this A, B, or C. No, instead it's I feel X because of Y need that I have. And a good sort of template is that, as well as I feel blank because I blank, as opposed to because you. And Rosenberg has a quick thing about motivation by guilt or by the heart. So I think of this with parents and their children, but it applies with any relationship. When we attribute our own feelings to other people, and this is a mechanism of motivating by guilt. For example, if a parent says to a child, "Oh, when it hurts mommy and daddy when you get bad grades at school," what this implies is that the child's actions are the cause of the parent's emotional state, whether that be happy or unhappy. And it puts a lot of burden on the child. This will lead to children, or anyone in this case, who is acting to avoid guilt, not acting out of a sense of like really wanting to do good. So it's like avoiding a negative. And we go back to this idea that there are needs at the roots of our feelings, that feelings aren't just these things that happen that just come to us without reason, right? So the idea here, this is really super, probably controversial at the time and a really big change if we really take this to heart, is that when we judge, criticize, diagnose, and interpret other people's actions, we're really showing an alienated expression of our own needs. And he calls it a tragic expression. Earlier in the book, now he's calling it alienated. So whenever somebody has some negative response, it's like they're really opening up their heart to you and saying, hey, these are my needs that aren't being met. And that we can think of it as opposed to immediately reacting and thinking, oh, I need to defend myself. But, well, what's going on? Again, like that 4th step, what needs or expectations or wants that person is not having fulfilled that's causing them to act this way. It's really a powerful way of looking at negativity or hostility. So for example, someone says like, oh, you never understand me. That could be like the start of an argument. Oh, I do understand you, do this, do that. And then we just go back and forth defending ourselves. Who's right, who's wrong? As opposed to that, what if we thought of it as what they're really saying is my need to be understood is not being met. You've been working late every night this week. You love your work more than me. So that's a criticism, right? Or an assessment and a criticism. Maybe what they're really saying is my need for intimacy is not being met. What happened in their mind before they said that? What's going on internally? If we can express our needs directly, this is the idea here, is connected to our feelings. So needs and feelings, we're more likely to have them met actually, as opposed to just doing the back and forth and we blame each other. From the moment people begin talking about what they need rather than what's wrong with one another, the possibility of finding ways to meet everybody's needs is increased greatly. So this is idea, get to the need, what is not being met. And then he has a couple of different levels of needs as well. So there's autonomy, integrity, celebration, interdependence, play, spiritual communion, and physical nurturance, or sort of touch. And then pain is expressing needs, and pain in not expressing needs. Because we can go either way, either expressing the negative or not being able to express. And there's a really cool story of Rosenberg's mom and how painful it can be when others don't acknowledge their needs, which is something that we should work on a lot, really. He talked earlier in the previous chapter about women not being able to express their emotions because they feel like they should just be caretakers. And I think that men have that as well, and it applies not only in the feeling stage, but in the needs as well. So last thing before we finish, there are 3 stages that he talks about as far as emotional liberation. This is about taking responsibility. So 3 steps towards emotional liberation. The first step is emotional slavery, not where we want to be, obviously. And we believe that we are responsible for other people's feelings. So everybody must be happy, and it's my responsibility to make them happy. And therefore, people are seen as a burden, really, because it's like, oh, like you're this constant garden that needs to be gardened and tilled and kept happy, right? So step 2 is, he calls it the obnoxious stage. And this is a less mature response to kind of everything we're reading here, which is to say that we become aware of the high costs of emotional slavery. We're like, man, this is a huge burden. We don't want that. So we're like, hey, that's your problem. You're responsible for your emotions. I'm not responsible for your feelings. So here what we haven't grasped yet is that emotional liberation entails more than just asserting our own needs. And then so emotional liberation is the 3rd step. So here we respond to the needs of others out of compassion, not fear, guilt, or shame, or being obnoxious or annoyed. And we accept full responsibility for our own actions and intentions, but not the feelings that other people have. So we can ask ourselves what our intentions are, but we know that ultimately that person can make a choice to have their feelings the way they are. And in this stage of emotional liberation, we are also aware that we can never meet our own needs at the expense of other people. So here we clearly state what we need in a way that communicates that we are equally concerned about the needs of others to be fulfilled. So we're empathetic to them. And so those are the 3 steps. And just to summarize this chapter real quick, we've acknowledged the needs behind our feelings. So what's at the root of our feelings and what we observe. And the things that others say or do, again, can be from the very beginning. Things others can be a stimulus coming in to begin, but they're never the cause of our feelings or emotions, because we have more of a sense of autonomy over our emotions than that. And then again, there's 4 options to receive negative communication. We can blame ourselves, we can blame the other person, we can sense our own feelings or needs, what's going on in us, and then highest level, we can sense the feelings or needs of others, what's hidden in their message. So thanks for watching. Next time we'll continue again with DBC. Thanks.